How do you possibly fill a 30 billion pound black hole in a country's finances? Well, that is the massive challenge the UK government is tackling head-on with its 2025 budget. Today, we're going to break down their entire plan, piece by piece. And to do that, we've partnered up with the tax experts over at ProTax Accountant to give you a really clear guide on the changes that are probably going to affect you. So, let's get right into it.
30 billion pounds. Just let that sink in. This is the number at the very heart of the 2025 budget. It's this huge gap that the government absolutely has to close. And you know, it's so much more than just a number on a spreadsheet. A shortfall this big could impact the public services we all count on. And yeah, it could definitely impact our own wallets.
So, the big question is, how on earth does a government even start to tackle a number like that? I mean, it's not like they can find it down the back of the sofa, right? It takes a serious, well-thought-out strategy, and that is exactly what the 2025 budget is trying to lay out for us.
And the government's answer to that question is a three-part plan. You can kind of think of it like a three-legged stool. You need all three legs to be strong to keep the whole thing stable. Let's take a quick look at what those three legs are.
Okay, so here it is, the basic roadmap for the whole budget. First up, raise more money. And yep, that means taxes. Second, control spending, which is all about making public services more efficient and cutting out the waste. And third, and this is the long game, drive economic growth. The idea is to grow the whole economic pie so there's more money coming in naturally. We're going to dig into each one of these.
All right, let's dive into part one, raising more money. This is always the bit that gets everyone talking, because it's where we see changes that directly affect what we pay in taxes. And believe me, the 2025 budget has some very specific, targeted changes right here.
Now, the strategy here isn't just a simple across-the-board tax hike. It's much more surgical than that. What they're really trying to do is close the gap between how we tax money from work versus money from assets. That's why you see this focus on things like property, dividends, and savings. They're also taking a hard look at tax reliefs that have gotten a bit too expensive, and crucially, they're beefing up the fight against tax evasion.
Okay, this is a big one, so pay attention. As you can see here, starting from April 2027, any income you make from property, like rent, is going to be taxed under its own separate set of rates. And yeah, they're a little bit higher than the current income tax bands. The goal is pretty clear. Make sure earnings from assets are taxed more like earnings from a job. This is a pretty fundamental shift.
And it's not just property either. If you happen to be a small business owner who pays yourself through dividends, or maybe you're an investor, this change is definitely for you. From April 2026, the tax you pay on that dividend income is going up by 2 percentage points. Now, it might not sound like a lot, but for many, it's going to make a real difference to their take-home pay.
And here's a perfect example of how specific these changes can be. This pro tip from our friends at ProTax Accountant is a huge deal. Employee ownership trusts, or EOTs, used to be a super tax-efficient way to sell your business, with a full 100% relief from capital gains tax. Well, now that's being chopped in half, down to 50%. For business owners planning their exit, this is an absolute game changer.
We've covered raising money, so let's move on to part two of the plan, tightening the belt. Now, this isn't about making random cuts everywhere. It's about a targeted push for efficiency, trying to make every single taxpayer pound go that little bit further by finding waste and improving services. So, where are they actually looking to save this cash? Well, a major target is the NHS's heavy reliance on pricey agency staff. Then there's a big crackdown on fraud, both in the tax system and the welfare system. The asylum system is also getting reformed to cut costs. And finally, there's a big push to slim down administrative costs in the civil service to free up resources for the front line.
And just to put a number on that efficiency drive, the government is forecasting that their new measures to tackle fraud and errors in the welfare system will save an extra £1.3 billion just in the year 2030-31 alone. That really shows you the kind of long-term impact they're hoping for. It's a pretty hefty saving from just one of those initiatives.
And now for the third and maybe the most important part of the whole plan. Look, raising taxes and cutting costs can plug a hole for a while, but the government's real long-term solution is a big bet on economic growth. Stay with me here. The scale of what they're aiming for might just surprise you. So the philosophy is this. They believe that just balancing the books isn't enough. True long-term financial health for the country comes from a thriving economy, more innovation, and higher productivity. It's a fundamental shift in thinking from just managing the budget to actively trying to grow it.
And how are they going to do it? Well, we are talking about a massive investment of over £120 billion in infrastructure, roads, rail, energy, the whole lot. There are big reforms to planning laws designed to get 1.5 million new homes built, and they're also cutting red tape for businesses and placing strategic bets on the industries of the future, like AI and clean energy.
Okay, so we've looked at the government's grand plan from 30,000 feet. But what does all this high-level policy stuff actually mean for you, for me, for small businesses on the ground? Let's bring it right back down to earth and see how these changes could play out in the real world.
To make this real, let's just imagine someone. Let's picture a freelance web developer in London. She's good at what she does, she runs her business as a limited company, and she pays herself a small salary topped up with dividends. Well, she's the exact type of person who is going to feel the effects of a few of these changes.
So for our freelance developer, that dividend tax increase we talked about, it hits her directly. That 2 percentage point hike means that after April 2026, she will literally take home less money from the profits her company makes. It's a straight-up reduction in her income.
But it's not all tax hikes. Here's a quick did you know for you. To help with the cost of living, the 2025 budget also extends the 5p cut in fuel duty and freezes regulated rail fares for another year. These are little things designed to give households just a bit of breathing room on those everyday costs. So we've gone through the problem, the three-part solution, and what it could mean for you. With so much changing, the real question is, what should you do now? Understanding it all is step one, but the really smart move is to start planning your response. So let's just quickly recap the whole strategy. First, they're going to tweak taxes, mostly on assets and investments. Second, they're going to squeeze spending, focusing on efficiency and fighting fraud. And third, they're going to try to spur growth with a big bet on infrastructure. That's pretty much the 2025 budget in a nutshell.
Now, before we go any further, it's really, really important to say this. The information we've talked about today is for general guidance only. You shouldn't rely on it alone to make major financial decisions, because everyone's situation is completely different.
And that really leads us to the final and most important thought. We've walked through the big picture, but the question you need to be asking yourself is the one right here. How will all these little tweaks and big plans specifically impact your finances or your business's bottom line? And the answer to that is going to be unique to you.
Answering that question properly really calls for expert advice that's tailored to your exact situation. To navigate all the complexities of the 2025 budget, you really should talk to a professional. The experts at Pro Tax Accountant, who helped us put all this together, are there for exactly that reason. You can reach them on WhatsApp or give them a call on 079-8568-9912, or you can drop them an email at info@protaxaccountant.co.uk. Thanks so much for joining us.